Beats. Oh god.
Normally, I wouldn't cover this kind of subject, but when the stuff we love is being threatened with censorship and being falsely accused as catalysts for violence, well, I feel like I have to say something on behalf of the gaming community. If you've been anywhere near a newsfeed for the past few weeks, then you've no doubt heard about the mass shootings that have occurred across the country. You've probably also heard of the supposed reason behind these attacks. According to some people, video games. Now, it's true, this country has a ridiculous, scary, and life-threatening problem. Mass shootings are an insanely crazy thing to be so common in a first world country, and it is something that needs to be addressed and solved. That being said, contrary to what ignorant politicians, arrogant Karens, and foolish pseudo-reporters would have you believe, the solution to this problem has nothing to do with video games. Let this video serve as an open letter to anyone accusing video games as being the cause of mass violence. Today I'm going to crack open the claim that video games cause violence and explain why video games, yes, even the violent ones, have nothing to do with mass shootings or any other form of violence they are usually attributed to. But for the sake of the argument, let's think about this with some 2 + 2 logic. If violent video games contribute to violent crimes and mass shootings in any major way, other countries that consume video games should surely be dealing with violence on a similar scale, right? And the United States is only the 3rd highest consumer of video games per person in the world, so the 2 countries that have more people playing video games should be at least comparable as far as violent crime is concerned, right? Well, no, that's just not the case. See, the 2 countries above the US are Japan and South Korea, which are borderline utopian when it comes to violent crime statistics. There are multiple reputable sources that can back this up, and even a 3rd grader with basic comprehension of graphs could understand the information. But facts aren't what matter to corrupt politicians, and go far over the head of vaccine-denying, manager-demanding Karens. Instead, these Karens and politicians lie and say that quote-unquote studies back up their claims. However, I've never seen any of these claims backed up with any actual sources. Or at least sources that weren't funded by the Christian Karens Against Video Games type organization. To the contrary, there are dozens of studies conducted by unbiased third-party researchers from various universities and research entities around the globe, from Harvard to Oxford. Don't take my word for it. I'll admit, I'm biased. I play video games and violent video games almost every single day. Instead, take the word of literally all of these reputable sources. Seriously, take a look. I could keep the sources coming on screen for a lot longer, and I'll include them all in the description down below. I could end this video here, having cited a distinct lack of common sense and evidence on the blame video game side of the argument, and basic logic and common sense on the side of the gaming community. But there's still more that could be said, so let's continue debunking this ridiculous claim with some more basic logic. Consider for a second, if video games or even just violent video games were the cause of mass violence, then wouldn't the competitive gaming community be filled with violent sociopaths who are constantly being accused of being physically, mentally, or emotionally abusing to those around them? Well, they should, if the media's portrayal of gamers nowadays had an inkling of truth to it, but this just simply isn't the case. In fact, the gaming community at large is actually one of the most charitable, kind, and easygoing communities around. Every year, streamers, pro gamers, developers, and regular everyday gamers like the bulk of us raise millions of dollars for charitable causes. It feels like almost every year now, new milestones for charity are being met and exceeded by members of this community. Just a couple months ago, the streamer and pro gamer Dr. Lupo had his record for charitable donation broken by game developer Bungie. Now, how did he respond to this? Well, he plays violent video games every day of his life and competes professionally, so the media would probably assume he committed some sort of vile atrocity, right? But instead, he went ahead and re-broke the record, raising nearly $1 million with the help of his followers, all to donate to charity. Now, I reiterate, if violent video games were the cause of violence in the States, then wouldn't the people who play them professionally, sinking thousands of hours into these games, be the most likely candidates to display aggressive characteristics? Well, they should, but sadly for those with agendas, reality is often disappointing. Even gaming communities that are sometimes considered toxic aren't exempt from this. Communities like the competitive Smash Bros scene, which continues to have several charitable drives, events, and commitments every year. Everywhere you look, pro gamers, streamers, developers, and everyday gaming fans are coming together to do something good. And yet the gaming community is one of the most stigmatized and misinterpreted communities out there. All because politicians need a cheap talking point after violent atrocities. The truth of the matter is that video games are just a modern-day scapegoat that dishonest and lazy people are using to try and explain away issues which they're too blinded by greed and immaturity to actually confront. Every generation has these quote-unquote scapegoats. A couple generations ago, it was rock music that was to blame for violence and drugs. Before that, people were blaming TV. Look, it's bad enough that I have to live in a country run by corrupt morons. Don't make it worse by touching my games. And as much as some folks wish they could just run away from the issue by moving somewhere else, sadly, most of the best gaming producers are based in the United States. And if censorship laws and hard restrictions are made law in the United States, well, that means the games that are produced there will be stifled by BS and unwarranted restrictions. This is becoming a real issue and is getting worse and worse with every mass shooting or act of violence in which the press, politicians, or Karens can link the shooter to a dusty Wii they had at their grandparents' house or a 5-year-old save file on Ape Escape. Shootings seriously need to be addressed, and that doesn't involve censoring our favorite things unnecessarily. These dishonest and pandering attempts to demonize the gaming community do more and more damage with each time they're repeated in the echo chamber that is the modern media, and it's making all of us look bad. Normally I'd end my video with a classic reminder to keep on loving good stuff, but that's gonna be a lot harder if stupid and unwarranted laws are passed that censor the things we love. And with companies like Walmart refusing to advertise or list violent video games but still choosing to sell guns one aisle over, well, I'll end this video by reminding you to go out there and keep protecting the things you love, no matter how hard fake politicians or angry orange Karens try to take them away.